So when designing a mix, it's important to know your end goals and what enterprise you're in. If you've got soil compaction, so we want to make sure we've got a fair component of tap-rooted plants that can handle and penetrate those soils. If we've got low ground cover or low organic matter, we want to get more leafy carbon building plants like grasses and sorghum and things like that. We could look at pastures and identify certain weed species that might be causing a problem. We can then identify what plant family they are in, and then we can find a more desirable plant from that family to put in, so we can let the soil help us design these mixes as well. Ideally, if we can get at least 4 plant families in there and 8 or 9 species, then we can get some real magic happening. Summer active plants, we want winter active, we want some broadleaf, some brassicas, legumes, grasses, things like that. And when we have the diversity in, we can actually see what your soils are like by what plants are dominating. It's also understanding your rainfall, your context, your latitude, where you're at. There's a few factors to really increase your success, I suppose, in what you're doing. It really depends on your end goals, but at the end of the day, the more diversity we have, the more ability we have to tick more boxes and more goals. Generally, in our sowing program, the first crop we sow in the program is a cover crop, and the last crop we sow is a cover crop. So we'll sow a cover crop early in dry into a cropping paddock that's relatively clean in terms of weeds. That gets us some feed early, and then if we've got problem paddocks that maybe after a few years of cropping have got a lot of weed pressure, we leave them to the back end of the year, so we make sure we've got a good strike on the weeds, terminate them, then we sow them in, and we can grow. Because if we can grow large amounts of biomass with the cover crops, then we can really accelerate our soil health. Another thing I think is really important to add, going from winter to summer, depending on your rainfall, if you're in a very wet environment, you can just sow your summer stuff straight into your winter as they're maturing and away you go. But I've found more than likely in Australia, we're in a drier environment. Now, if you've got a winter crop flowering and setting seed, it's got a deeper root system established. Their job to survive as an annual is to grow the biggest, plump, healthiest seed, so grab as much nutrients and moisture out of the soil to do that. If that's happening while you're trying to sow a summer cover crop, it can be very detrimental to the establishment of that summer cover crop, because the winter crops can rob all that moisture and nutrients. So in a dry environment, if you're going from winter to summer, I would 100% terminate the winter first to stop it from stealing, and it gives the summer better chance of going. Going the other way is easier, because if you're going from summer to winter, cold weather is on your side. So as the summers are getting like this, if we get cold, they stop growing anyway. So then you can still get the winters in, and generally for us down here, we're coming into more moisture into the winter, so we've got a better chance. So we've done a number of times just sown straight into this with a winter cover crop, no drama from summer to winter, but winter to summer you have to be mindful. There's been a lot of people worried about growing, especially over the summer cover crops and using subsoil moisture. So time of termination is important if you're worried about that. If we shut them down prior to flowering, we still can conserve some of that subsoil moisture, and we've done soil pits on that and proven we come in with a wheat crop the next year and it hasn't been detrimental. The other thing is species selection. So shallow rooted cool season legumes like field peas and lentils are brilliant to put as ground cover over the summer if you're worried about, because they will grow, they tolerate the heat, they won't rub subsoil moisture, they stop heliotrope and other weeds, but at the same time they're fixing nitrogen and sequestering carbon. So we don't have to use these tap-rooted plants if we're worried about stealing moisture. We can use shallow-rooted plants as well. One of the most important things is to get good quality seed with no seed treatment on it, untreated seed. The seed treatments aren't working anyway, and they can be very detrimental, so they have got to go. And I would get bare seed, good quality seed, and use a biological stimulant on it. So, worm juice is a good one. There's many commercial things out there. We make some ourselves, and we'll try and put, minerals on the seed with microbes, so that when the seed germinates, it's surrounded by minerals and microbes, and it can then set the yield potential of that plant and help that plant associate its roots with the soil microbes. Some of the most important lessons I've learned comes back to paddock preparation, really. And every time I get any feedback from people growing cover crops, the greatest results are done when they're gone into good clean paddocks, and then they can get them established and grow to their full potential. Common questions I always get: seed depth and placement. Between large and small seeds, a bit of a compromise, and we find if we sow them, anywhere between 30 and 10 mil, we'll get them all up. They'll all germinate. Sometimes we've even sown at 50 mil, and the small seeds will still come up, they'll be slower. Another question I get asked is, can we broadcast, or are we best to sow, and what type of seeder? A seeder with the less soil disturbance is always best, and it gives good seed to soil contact, so we can maximise our chance of getting that seed germinated. If you are broadcasting to enhance your success of that, if you've got some sort of moisture in the soil, and you can broadcast prior to a decent rain event of 10 to 40 mil, that'll enhance your chances. So broadcasting, they'll come up, but it might be delayed, and you've got more risk of birds and other predators and things eating the seed. So seed placement will give you best results if you can get that. If we're sowing the seed at 50 kilos a hectare, put 100 kilos in, sow a hectare, have a look, and if you empty a seed, you're going on too heavy, rather than filling the seeder up and sowing, and then you run out of seed and you've only done 10 hectares. So you just put a small amount in to check first, measure your hectares, that's about right, and you can fine tune it, and then once you've got it fine tuned, you can go for it and it won't adjust. Another important thing to consider when you are calibrating your seeder, if you have inoculated your seed, we would inoculate it at least 3 or 4 hours before we're calibrating the seeder, because when you inoculate the seed, I find we can go up to 10 litres a tonne. That's quite wet then. Over that it gets a bit hard to handle. So 5 to 10 litres per tonne is good. But then as it's wet, if we calibrate it, it'll flow at this rate. Then as that seed dries, it'll flow faster. So our calibration will be out. So we ideally might inoculate the seed the night before, allow it to dry on the seed, put it in the seeder, calibrate it, and away we go, and it'll run consistent then. So managing the cover crops, once again, comes down to rainfall, latitude, your context of where we're at. Soil temperature is a big bearing on how things go. What we find down south in Victoria, when it gets colder in the winter, we get less sunlight and soil temperatures drop below 10 degrees. Sunlight slows down, everything slows down. So we can now stimulate that when we get cold and low sunlight through foliar nutrition. So we will come out and measure the plants with a Brix meter to measure what they're Brixing, and if they're low, that means they're not photosynthesizing much, or because things are slow. We can do a foliar on them, lift that Brix, and then that turns on a switch where we're stimulating that plant, and we can get a massive response from a very small amount inputs. There's obviously different modes of terminating cover crops. So one's obviously a herbicide, you can shut them down. Livestock, I love, that's a great way, crash graze and chomp them out. Crimp roller is another great way. I've seen some amazing things with crimp roller. As a matter of fact, a lot of people I come across, they said the fastest way they've seen in anything they've ever done to improve soil is grow huge biomass and crimp it straight down, and then send the cattle on. And then their manure and urine is essentially then inoculating that soil with biology in amongst that mulch. So in some ways it's like surface composting, like they've got the manure and the dry, and you're just composting in the paddock. So crimp rolling's an unreal way to do it. Frost is another way. Like we've even sown these tropical legumes and buckwheat and stuff in the autumn with our winter crops, and the wheat's come up, buckwheat's grown with it. Buckwheat's unbelievable at releasing phosphorus, so we've seen a yield bump from that phosphorus release, which we've measured. The legumes are fixed nitrogen. Then when we get our first frost in May, June, buckwheat and cowpeas disappear, but we still see the benefits. Even though they've only grown 6 weeks, we can still see benefits. So another way we can terminate them is using nature.